Brooks Harlan, had spent 28 years perfecting the art of not giving a damn. Born in the shadow of the Brooklyn Bridge to a single mom who scrubbed floors in Manhattan high-rises, I'd learned early that the city chewed up dreamers and spat out husks. By 18, I was bouncing between odd jobs, bartending in Hell's Kitchen dives, hauling crates for food trucks in Soho, ghosting through the subways like a shadow no one noticed. Alphas like me were a dime a dozen in New York. Broad-shouldered, rough around the edges, with that primal edge that made betas scurry and omegas whisper. But I ignored it all. The heats that twisted lesser men into knots? I dosed suppressants and powered through. The packs forming in lofts uptown. Alphas posturing for territory? Not my circus, not my monkeys. And love? That was for suckers who believed in fairy tales amid the concrete jungle. Until Elias Voss crashed into my world like a penthouse party gone nuclear. It was a Thursday night in late October, the kind where the wind off the East River bites like betrayal. I'd just finished a double shift at O'Malley's, a hole-in-the-wall Irish pub in the village where the Guinness flowed freer than tears. My boots were caked in spilled stout, my flannel shirt clinging damp from the drizzle that never seemed to quit. I was cutting through the back alley to my shoebox apartment in the East Village, rent-controlled miracle, roach-infested curse, when the scream hit me. Not some drunk tourist's yelp, but a raw, animal keen that raised the hackles on my neck. There he was, Elias, heir to the Voss pharmaceutical empire, the spoiled Omega prince of Manhattan's elite. I'd seen his face plastered on society pages, golden curls, porcelain skin, those sea-green eyes that could drown a room. 24, fresh out of Yale with a trust fund that could buy Brooklyn twice over. But tonight, he wasn't posing for paparazzi. He was on his knees in the muck, back against a rusted dumpster, his designer jacket shredded like confetti. Two betas, thugs with cheap cologne masking their fierce sweat, loomed over him, one cracking knuckles, the other brandishing a switchblade that glinted under the sodium lamps. "Filthy heat rat," the blade guy snarled, his voice thick with that midtown entitlement. "Daddy's little Omega thinks he can slum it in our bar? Voss money don't buy you out of this." Elias's scent hit me then. Jasmine and storm clouds, laced with the sharp tang of distress pheromones that clawed at my alpha instincts like hooks in flesh. Omegas in heat were rare sights in the city. Most locked themselves away with blockers and billion-dollar security. But Elias? He was unraveling, his body betraying him in the worst way, cheeks flushed crimson, breaths coming in shallow pants that fogged the air. I should have walked. 9 times out of 10 I did. But something in his eyes, defiant, even as terror flickered behind them, snagged me. Or maybe it was the way he didn't beg. He just glared, bloodied lip curling into a sneer that said, "Come on. Then, make it hurt." "Hey, assholes," I called, stepping into the light, my voice gravel low from too many smokes and not enough sleep. The rain plastered my hair to my skull, but I didn't flinch. "Party's over. Walk away." They turned, sizing me up, 6'2" of lean muscle from years of hauling kegs and dodging life's punches. Blade guy laughed, a wet bark. "Mind your business, alpha trash. This one's marked for Voss payback." Elias's head snapped up, his gaze colliding with mine. For a split second, the alley faded, the rain, the stink, the blade, and it was just us, two strangers in a storm. Then he whispered, hoarse and broken, "Don't. You don't have to." But I did. The first beta lunged, all fury and no finesse, and I sidestepped, driving my elbow into his throat with a crack that echoed off the bricks. He dropped, gurgling. The second swung the knife wild, slicing air where my ribs had been a heartbeat before. I grabbed his wrist, twisted until bones popped, and kneed him square in the gut. He folded like wet cardboard, blade clattering into a puddle. Silence fell, broken only by the patter of rain and Elias's ragged breaths. I hauled the betas into a heap by the dumpster, zip-tying their wrists with a spare from my pocket. Old habit from bar fights, and dialed 911 on my burner. "Yeah, assault in progress. Alley off Bleecker. Send uniforms." When I turned back, Elias was staring at me like I'd sprouted wings. Or horns. His scent wrapped around me, thick and intoxicating, pulling at threads I thought I'd severed long ago. Up close, he was smaller than the photos suggested. Slender, almost fragile, but with a wiry strength in the way he pushed himself up, ignoring the blood streaking his jaw. You just did that, he said, voice a mix of awe and suspicion. For me? Some random Omega. I shrugged, wiping rain from my face. Seemed like the right play. You good? He laughed, a brittle sound that cracked into a cough. Good? I'm in heat, bleeding, and those were my ex's hired goons. Define good. That explained the Voss payback. Rumors had swirled for months. Elias Voss, the golden boy, dumped by his alpha fiancée in a tabloid scandal that painted him as the villain. Too wild, too unclaimed, too Omega for the boardroom air. The Voss empire peddled suppressants and heat inducers to the masses, but their own son, left to fend off the wolves. Sirens incoming, I said, nodding toward the street. You need a hospital? Or? No. He grabbed my arm, fingers digging in like anchors. His touch sparked something electric, alpha to omega, a pull that made my blood hum. Please, not the cops. My family's already spinning this. Just get me out. I should have said no. Dumped him at the nearest ER and ghosted back to my invisible life. But those eyes, pleading, proud, a storm begging for shelter, hooked me deeper. All right, my place is 2 blocks. Can you walk? He nodded, leaning into me more than he meant to, his body heat seeping through my soaked shirt. We stumbled out of the alley, the city swallowing us whole. Honking taxis, neon buzz, the endless grind of New York at midnight. My apartment was a 5th-floor walk-up in a pre-war brownstone, the kind with creaky stairs and walls thin as paper. I buzzed us in, flicked on a single bulb that cast long shadows over peeling wallpaper and a futon that doubled as bed and couch. Elias collapsed onto it, shivering, his scent flooding the room like a drug. I grabbed a towel from the bathroom, threadbare, but clean, and a spare hoodie, tossing them over. Dry off. I'll make coffee. Black? He wrapped the towel around his shoulders, but his eyes never left me. You live like this? In this? It's home. I measured grounds into the ancient percolator, the ritual grounding me against the chaos of his presence. Pays the bills. Or doesn't. Whatever. He peeled off his ruined shirt without shame, revealing pale skin marred by bruises blooming like ink. Omega lithe, all graceful lines and hidden fire. My throat tightened. Suppressants be damned. I'm Elias, he said, as if we hadn't skipped intros. And you are. Brooks. The coffee gurgled to life. Just Brooks. Brooks. He tested it like a fine wine. My knight in flannel armor. What's a guy like you doing playing hero in the rain? Bad night for standing still. I poured 2 mugs, handing him one. Steam curled between us, a fragile barrier. He sipped, winced at the heat, then met my gaze over the rim. I owe you. Big time. Name it. Money, favors, whatever. I leaned against the kitchenette counter, arms crossed to keep from reaching out. Don't need your wallet, princess. Just crash here till the heat breaks. Doors there if you change your mind. Princess. A spark of that spoiled fire lit his eyes, chasing away the fear. Careful, Brooks. I bite. The laugh surprised me, low and real, cutting through the tension like sunlight through smog. We talked then, or he did, words tumbling out in a feverish rush. About the fiancé who'd proposed with a prenup clause locking him in heat cycles on demand. About the Voss boardroom where Omegas were props, not people. About running tonight, high on rebellion and blockers wearing thin, only to crash into ambush. I listened, nodding, the alpha in me raging silent at the injustice. By dawn, his heat had ebbed enough for sleep, and he curled on my futon, golden curls splayed like a halo. I crashed in the armchair, watching the city wake through grimy windows. Fairy horns, distant sirens, the pulse of a beast that never slept. That was the hook. The line sank deep when he woke screaming 2 nights later, nightmares twisting him into knots. I held him then, no words, just the steady press of my body against his tremors, scents mingling in the dark. Jasmine and pine, omega and alpha, a forbidden alchemy. Stay, he murmured into my neck, fingers clutching my shirt. Don't let go. I stayed. God help me, I stayed. But New York has a way of twisting mercy into chains. By week's end, Elias's father, Victor Voss, Pharma Titan with a smile like a shark, had tracked him down. Not with cops but lawyers. Slick suits in my doorway at 7 a.m., offering a discreet arrangement. Elias, pale and cornered, signed it without looking. And just like that, I was collateral. "You're hired," Elias announced that afternoon. Back in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, a glass area of marble and minimalism that made my apartment look like a bomb site. He lounged on a leather sectional worth my yearly rent, nursing a mimosa, bruises faded under concealer. Personal attendant, whatever you want to call it. 50 grand a year plus perks. Deal? I stared, coffee mug halfway to my lips. His coffee, imported beans ground by a machine that cost more than my truck. What the hell is this? Repayment. His grin was all teeth, masking the shadows under his eyes. "You saved my ass. Now you keep it intact. Chauffeur? Bodyguard? Heat buddy, your call. But you're mine now, Brooks. In the city of sin, even knights need a leash." I should have bolted, pocketed the signing bonus and vanished into the sprawl. But his scent lingered on my skin from the night before, a ghost that whispered mine in the quiet hours. And damn if that didn't scare me more than any blade in an alley. So I signed. Became Elias Voss's shadow in the machine of Manhattan high society. Mornings started with espresso runs to Dean and DeLuca, afternoons shadowing him through board meetings where alphas in Armani suits leered like he was the quarterly report. Evenings? That's when the real work began. Drawing baths in clawfoot tubs, kneading knots from shoulders tense with unspoken fears, holding him through heats that left us both wrecked and wanting. He was spoiled, all right, demanding playlists for his runs along the reservoir. Springsteen mixed with Billie Holiday, a crash of grit and grace. Insisted I learn the difference between a Bordeaux and a Barolo, laughing when I mangled the pronunciations. But beneath the air's polish was a boy who'd never been seen. Not really. "They want the Omega," he'd say, staring out at the glittering skyline. "Not Elias. Never Elias." I'd bump his shoulder with mine, casual as breathing. "Then show him Elias, the one who fights dirty in alleys." His laugh would bubble up, real and rare, and for a moment, the city felt small enough to conquer. Weeks blurred into a rhythm I never asked for but couldn't quit. We stole moments in the chaos. Midnight slices at Lombardi's, his knee brushing mine under the table. Drives upstate in my beat-up Ford, windows down, his head on my shoulder as Bruce crooned about Born to Run Hearts. He marked me in subtle ways. A cufflink engraved with a tiny pine tree, slipped into my pocket after a particularly brutal gala where his ex cornered him, whispering poison about unworthy alphas. "You're worthy," Elias had hissed back, chin high, but later, in the limo he'd shattered. "He called you trash. My trash. God. Brooks, what am I doing?" I pulled him close, hand in his curls, breathing him in. "Owning it, like you own everything else." That night the line blurred. His heat crested slow and sweet, no blockers to blunt it, and he chose me. Not out of desperation, but want. Lips on mine in the penthouse shadows. Hands mapping scars I'd never shared. Alpha and Omega. Equals in the tangle of sheets. Scents entwining like vows unspoken. "Mine," he gasped against my throat, nails raking fire down my back, and for the first time I believed in claiming. But Voss money buys more than silence. It buys betrayal wrapped in velvet. It started with whispers, Elias's phone buzzing at odd hours, his father's voice a low rumble through the walls. "The merger needs stability, son. No scandals. No distractions." I ignored it, chalked it up to Empire Games. Until the night of the Met Gala, New York's jewel box of excess. Elias was a vision in emerald silk, Omega elegance weaponized. Arm looped through mine as flashes popped like gunfire. I was the hired muscle in a tailored black suit that pinched at the shoulders. His insistence. "You clean up nice, Harlan." Almost civilized. We danced under chandeliers that dripped light like liquid gold. His body flushed to mine, the world fading to the sway of strings and his jasmine pulse. "Run away with me," he murmured, lips brushing my ear. "After this, some cabin in the Adirondacks. No Voss, no New York. Just us." My heart stuttered, hope, that treacherous thief. "Yeah? You ditching the throne for a flannel kingdom. For you? In a heartbeat." But heartbeats lie. Midway through the waltz, His ex materialized, Tristan Hale, Wall Street wolf with a jaw like carved marble and eyes cold as the Hudson in January. Elias, he purred. All alpha charm laced with venom. Slumming it again? This one's got that authentic scent, like wet dog after a fire sale. Elias stiffened, but I felt the tremor. Piss off, Tristan. We're done. Oh, darling. Tristan's gaze slid to me, dissecting. But the board isn't. Your father's offer? I accepted. With conditions. The music swelled, but the air turned to ice. Elias pulled away, face draining of color. What conditions? Tristan smiled, slow and serpentine. You leashed properly this time. No strays. Sign the papers tomorrow or Voss Pharma tanks on the merger news. Your little rebellion? Headline fodder by dawn. I stepped forward, growls rumbling low in my chest, but Elias's hand on my arm stopped me. Icy. Final. Brooks, don't. We fled the gala in silence, the limo slicing through rain-swept streets. Back at the penthouse, he paced like a caged panther, scotch in hand, golden curls disheveled. It's a bluff. Has to be. But his phone lit up Victor's text. Handle it or lose everything. Elias hurled the glass, shards exploding across Persian rugs. I can't. God, Brooks, the company. Mom's legacy. Thousands of jobs. And there it was, the chasm. His world of glass towers and golden parachutes. Mine of grit and ghosts. Then sign, I said, voice steady as I could make it. I'll fade out, like I always do. No, he whirled, eyes wild, crossing the room in 3 strides to crash into me. You're not fading. You're mine. We burned then, desperate and devouring, bodies a battlefield of what-ifs. But dawn brought the truth. Papers on the marble island, Elias's signature already inked, and a check, 6 figures, severance for the loyal employee. I found it when I went for coffee, the note pinned beneath. Forgive me. This city breaks us all. The betrayal hit like a subway train. Swift, merciless, leaving me gasping in the wreckage. He'd chosen them. The empire. The lie of stability over the raw, ragged us. I didn't rage, didn't beg, just packed my duffel. Flannel, boots, the cufflink I'd never wear again, and ghosted into the gray morning. New York swallowed me whole, indifferent as ever. Steam rising from grates, vendors hawking bagels to the rush hour crush. Weeks passed in a haze of doubles at O'Malley's. Suppressants doubled to dull the phantom ache of his scent. I ignored the society rags, Voss Heir weds in lavish ceremony, Omega bliss, until the night I saw him. Central Park, under a harvest moon. Elias on a bench by the Bethesda fountain. Alone in the chill, wedding band glinting like a shackle. He looked wrecked, thinner, eyes hollowed by secrets. Our gazes locked across the green, and he rose slow, as if every step cost him. Brooks. Elias. The air crackled, scents clashing like thunderheads. I thought you'd run. Far. New York's got hooks. I shoved hands in pockets, the cufflink biting my palm. You look like hell, princess. He laughed, bitter as November wind. Marriage is a bitch. Tristan's. Everything they warned me about. Controlling. Cold. And every night, I dream of alleys and alphas who fight for scraps. My chest cracked open, raw and bleeding. Why tell me? You made your bed. Because it's a lie. Tears tracked down his cheeks, silver in the lamplight. I signed to save the company, but it was always you. Victor knew about us. Blackmailed me with your name. Taint the Harlan boy with scandal, watch him drown. I couldn't let them destroy you. The world tilted. Not choice but chains. You should have trusted me to fight. Like you trusted me not to break? His hand found mine, trembling. I love you, Brooks. Spoiled air and all. Run with me now. For real. The city hummed around us. Joggers pounding paths, taxis honking distant symphonies. I pulled him close, foreheads touching, breaths sinking in the fragile space between ruin and redemption. New York's not done with us yet, but maybe we can rewrite the ending. We walked then, hands linked, into the sprawl that had tried to bury us. Not as servant and master, but 2 souls scarred and stubborn, carving space in the concrete heart. Love in New York isn't fairy tale. It's grit and grace, betrayal forged into something fiercer. And in that fierce, we found home. Not in penthouses or alleys, but in the quiet claim of us. The rain started again, soft as absolution, and for the first time, I didn't ignore it. I let it wash us clean.